Good afternoon, colleagues, and thank you very much for coming along to this webinar. I'm delighted to introduce Lisa Armstrong from Respectme. She has spent over 12 years working in different consultancy roles, both within the private and the voluntary sector. She's a qualified trainer with Respectme, which is Scotland's anti-bullying service. And she's committed to helping adults involved in the lives of both children and young people to gain the practical skills and confidence to support those who are bullied and also those who bully others. So I would just like to hand over now to Lisa, who will start her presentation.
Okay, so welcome everybody. Thank you very much for voting in today, and it's great to see that there's such a broad range of geographical areas represented throughout Scotland. So welcome everybody, and over the next 30 minutes, as George and Suzanne have mentioned, we will be going through some of the aspects of Respectme's work, and I'll start certainly by going through some of the key points that we'll be covering today. First of all, the aim of today is really to help develop an understanding of bullying behaviours and the impacts of some of those bullying behaviours on the lives of children and young people. We're also going to be exploring the options that young people can consider in their response to bullying, and again acknowledging the role that we've got as the adults in their lives to help them explore those options at a time when perhaps those options might not be particularly clear to them. We're also going to take the opportunity to explore Respectme's new resource. It's a brand new resource that we've recently developed called Bullying, What Can I Do?, which is aimed as a discussion tool to use with students to help them explore those options. And finally, we'll conclude by talking through just how Respectme can perhaps help you further in terms of developing your knowledge and understanding and confidence in relation to this particular topic. And as George has mentioned, we will have a question and answer session. So please do save any questions that you've got for the end, or even write them in the chat box, and we'll make sure that we get through as many as we can in the time that we've got. So let's start by considering then what we mean by bullying. And over the years that Respectme has been working in this field, we've developed really an understanding, or what we feel is a simple way of discussing this in a way that helps people get to grips with it in the simplest way. The way that we talk about bullying is the relationship between bullying behaviour and the impact that it has. So it's the two, when the two things really go hand in hand, that we actually acknowledge that bullying has taken place. The best way to really illustrate that is that bullying behaviour, let's say for example name calling, may not have the same impact on two different individuals. So one individual might experience it in an entirely different way. One child or young person might be hurt, upset, distressed by it, but another individual might be completely unaffected. So it's when we see those two things coming together, bullying behaviour and the impact that it's had. We know that bullying is behaviour that impacts on a person's capacity to feel in control of themselves, and that's what we refer to as their sense of agency. And what we know from our work with children and young people, when they describe how they feel when bullying has taken place, is that very often they talk about how it's really taken something away from them. It's taken away their ability to feel in control, to speak up, and to really be in control of their feelings and how they present themselves. So we refer to that as their sense of agency. We also know in terms of some of the impacts that it has that it's behaviour that makes children and young people feel hurt, frightened, left out. And whilst the behaviour might not be repeated, sometimes the threat that it might happen again is enough to sustain that that fear and that anticipation that it might happen. So that again can lead to changes of behaviour and sense of well-being. We also know that of course these behaviours can happen face to face, and we also know that obviously with the onset of social media and internet usage, that these behaviours, the online world has become another place that bullying can take place. So what I was interested really in finding out is, before we start talking about in a bit more detail about what some of the impacts might be of bullying behaviour, is to get a sense from yourselves really about your own experience of dealing with students that have been affected by bullying, and what your observations have been in terms of what some of those impacts have been. So I thought we could just start by just taking a quick poll in terms of what some of the short-term impacts that you have observed in students have actually been. So please feel free to note down any comments and any observations, and we'll pick up on those as a larger group. So really the first question then is, what potential short-term impacts might bullying have on an individual? So I'll let you kind of give that some thought and reflection, and see what you come up with. Great. So we can see they're coming through loss of confidence, feeling emotionally upset, self-esteem issues, withdrawal, stopping attending college, not attending classes, sleep patterns, and absolutely impact on mental health. Again, loss of confidence there coming up as one of the most prominent impacts. And I can see there a change in behaviour, and that's again one of the things that we're looking out for there when we're trying to find out if bullying behaviour might be affecting a student. Changes in behaviour are often a key indicator that something might be going on in terms of being affected by bullying behaviour. Great, so thank you very much for that. What about then the long-term impacts? Let's have a little think then about what some of those longer-term impacts might be. So looking further down the line, what might be the natural consequence if, going back to the original list of short-term impacts, if those things were left unchecked, and a student was suffering lack of confidence, not attending classes, what might be some of the longer-term impacts affecting students? That's great. Absolutely would agree with all of those things, and I'm sure these are impacts that you would have observed or been aware of within your own settings. I should just mention as well that Respectme is managed by, although we're funded by Scottish Government, we are managed by the Scottish Association for Mental Health, SAMH. As you've absolutely highlighted in some of your answers, there is a strong correlation between the impacts and effects of bullying and an individual's sense of well-being and mental health. So it's absolutely key that we've identified that. So thank you very much for all of those answers coming through. So just going back to the presentation then, you've absolutely taken the wind out of my sails, because in terms of the impacts, spot on with pretty much all of these. So what we do commonly see in terms of a response is either students if they've been affected by bullying, that fight back instinct. So somebody had mentioned there, perhaps showing and displaying violence towards others as a coping mechanism. So that's one of the things that we can observe. We also see students kind of acquiescing and sometimes going along with the bullying behaviour, almost as a kind of a sense of protection, protective mechanism. But actually, under the surface, they're suffering negative impacts, but putting a kind of brave face on it whilst pretending to go along with it. And then another thing that we commonly will observe is students or young people just withdrawing, changing their behaviours, changing the activities that they normally would engage with, and just almost shrinking back from what they normally would be doing. So one of those things would be one of those three things would be a common response. Absolutely, as you've highlighted, school and college attendance could well be affected, and again, some of the mental health and well-being things that we might see fall out of it could be eating disorders, suicidal thoughts, self-harming, depression, and again, there's a correlation between if self-esteem has been affected, then that student, that child or young person's aspirations could well be affected as their confidence levels kind of shrink back and decline. And again, we mentioned about kind of targeting and turning outwards that bullying behaviour towards other individuals as well. So thank you for all your ideas on that, and these are definitely impacts that we need to be aware of. So in terms of our resource here, Bullying What We Can Do, as I mentioned at the beginning, we've developed this new resource because if we've got a student that is affected by any of these, by bullying in any of these ways, then obviously we want to be able to support and get that student back to a place where they're feeling more in control. And so what we've developed here is a resource that hopefully will guide and support you and any staff members that you're working with to be in a position where you can talk through the options with a young person to help restore their sense of agency. And the agency being, as I alluded to before, that feeling of being back in control of the situation. Very often, if you ask a young person that's been affected by bullying what they want to happen, very commonly we will hear the response, well, we just want it to stop. But actually, the time difference between the bullying behaviour and actually stopping may very often not be immediate. There could well be a series of steps and weeks, months indeed, before that actually happens. So we need to think of ways in which we can support that young person to explore some options and get back to feeling more in control. So what I wanted to just, before I show you the resource, is just to I guess get a sense from you about what might be some of the ideas in your own mind at the moment about some of the options that might be available to a young person if we're supporting them in a discussion about how to deal with bullying behaviour if they're affected by it. So I'm going to take another quick kind of poll question now and put this to you. So put yourself in this situation. If an individual was being bullied in your own setting, what options might you consider exploring with them as a way of dealing with it or coping with it? So again, I'll just ask you to pop your questions into the chat box there so we can have a feel of what you're thinking. So I can see they're talking about somebody, about it with someone is absolutely key. And any others? So talking about it is important. Mediation. So yes, that's again another option. Deciding what they'll say if it happens again. Making good support links in class with other students, absolutely. So offering the space to encourage a safe opportunity to talk, building trust with students. is absolutely critical. So great, so some ideas around that. So I'm just going to ask George now to go to our resource. I'll give you the opportunity. Some of you might have already had a chance to have a look at this, but we will have a look at the video first, and then we'll come and explore the guidance notes that go with it after we've had a chance to see it. So sit back and enjoy.
If you're being provoked, laughed at, left out or frightened, made to feel you've no options, no control, no power, that's bullying. Bullying can happen to anyone. Him, anyone or even all of them. Even her. So how do you get back that feeling of being in control? How can you be your old, smiley, scrap that, you were never that smiley, sort of smiley self again? Or help a friend who's struggling? Well, the good news is that you do have options. Some might be more appealing, like this one, than others. Not so much. Even if it's bothering you, pretend it doesn't. Act like you don't give a monkey's, and their actions and words could lose all power. This might not work first time, or second, or third. It might take what feels like forever, ouch, to stop. And it can be pretty hard making out something's not bothering you when it is. It really, really is. Maybe they've no idea they're upsetting you, so put them straight. Tell them how it feels, then ask them to stop. If you think this might make things worse, this isn't for you. If you're being bullied, you could try turning the situation around by having a funny, clever comeback. But you need to be confident to try this, so weigh up the situation first. No one likes to be embarrassed in front of others, and it might make them react more strongly than they did before. Maybe you could talk to your mum, or how about your dad? Does that feel right for you? Or is that the worst idea ever? Does the thought of that fill you with more fear than the bullying itself? What if they overreact and make the situation worse? Or get even more upset by it than you? Or total horror show. Folk find out and call you a grass. It's okay to think telling an adult is not okay. But think about it. Maybe you only feel that way because you haven't thought of the right adult. Telling the right adult could make all the difference. It could be a parent, or a grandparent, or a teacher, or a coach. It doesn't matter who they are, just that you trust them to do their best by you. Or you could talk to someone you don't know, either online or on the phone. You could try giving them a taste of their own medicine, but that could make them react even more aggressively than they did before. Hitting back may be a choice for some people, but it might not be your thing, and it's high risk. You could end up even more hurt, or if you hurt them, you could get charged with assault. Same goes for online bullying. Online messages and texts can all be traced. Granted, maybe not by her. Is keeping a diary your kind of thing? It could be completely personal, or you could share it with the world.
Every day I go to school and
writing things down can help you get everything out and provides a log of what took place when, should you wish to report it. Go on, let rip. Try music, art, sport, any kind of sport, to let all those pent-up feelings run free. It can help you feel better. Much better. So there you have it in a nutshell. Options. You might try one. Did I mention I'd have this one? Lots and lots of this one. Or some, or all of them. They might work first time, or sometimes, or not at all, and you have to try something else. Point is, you've plenty to choose from. Have a think about the options you want to use so you can be, well, you again. Find out more at respectme.org.uk.
Great, so I hope you enjoyed watching that, and just at this point I'd really be keen to find out what you thought of the resource. As I said, it's a new resource for us, so even just getting your observations or thoughts around the resource would be really helpful for us as well. So I just invite you at this point to pop into the chat box any initial comments or even ideas about how you might use the resource in your own setting. So I'll just give you a minute or so just to pop those in before we go on. Great, so thank you very much for putting your comments in there. That'll be really useful for us as well, just to reflect on those. Really great to get your feedback on that, so thank you. What I would say is that there is a subtitled version of this that's available on our website, and again, you can use the Respectme website to access the resource. But just to highlight the fact that there is a subtitled version available should you require it. The other thing that I wanted to point out is we're very lucky today because we have my colleague Pamela Graham with me, who actually developed the resource. So if you've got any specific questions around the resource that you would like to ask at the end and how it perhaps could be used, I'll do my best to answer, but if I think Pamela's best placed to answer any questions at the end, then I will hand over to Pamela. So I can see some things, comments that really coming through that really echo why we put the resource together in the first place. What we wanted to do, based on the research that we did with children and young people, which very much highlighted that children and young people value choice when it comes to exploring options in terms of bullying behaviour. It came across loud and clear that they want to be able to choose actions that make them feel better. And help them to cope, as well as what's most likely to make the bullying stop. So having choices is definitely key to restoring that sense of agency. And as I said before at the beginning, exploring options with them is a really key part of your response to help them effectively to work through how they will respond going forward to the bullying behaviour. So some key messages then that I wanted to highlight about the learning resource. It's essentially that, I hope this came through, is that there are no right or wrong answers when it comes to exploring options. It's very much about the individual and what's going to work for that individual based on their circumstances and what that person's particular personality might be like. So some things will work for some people but won't necessarily work for others. So that's important to bear in mind. And every option has its positives and negatives. There's no one-size magic button that fits all. So again, part of your role really is to work through, well, what might some of those pros and cons look like before the individual works through what they're going to choose ultimately going forward as the best response. Actually sitting down and talking to them and exploring those options with them really does help build confidence and to actually gain that self-awareness about what's going to work best for me and my circumstances. That's actually a really powerful exercise, so don't underestimate that. And also we know that exploring options together very much helps individuals learn how to manage their difficulties, it helps them express themselves, and it helps with their problem solving skills. So all really important parts of of you helping an individual deal with bullying behaviour is exploring the options. Now, the other thing that I wanted just to kind of draw your attention to is that this resource is very much a flexible resource, and we have developed alongside the resource some guidance notes to go with it, so that in your own setting you have got your own set of guidance about how you might inform a discussion about it. Essentially, there are different ways that you can use the resource. So what you've got in front of you here on your screen are the supporting notes for facilitators. And I'll just kind of draw your attention to a couple of things. You can see here that as we go through the notes, and I'll just scroll down, in italics are the actual scripts that you see in the resource that we've just seen. So here you can see the script there, and then underneath the script you'll see some actual questions that you can use if you're showing this to a group of young people to reflect on what they've just seen. And underneath that, there are supporting notes to help you get more informed before you would have the discussion with them. So there are two ways in which you can use this resource. Either stopping and starting the resource as we've indicated through the notes. So after each option, pressing pause and then taking the time to reflect on each individual option, discussing with them what might be the pros and cons. Or the other alternative is to show the resource in its whole entirety and then have a discussion afterwards based on everything that they've seen. I guess our recommendation would be to show the whole resource and then do a whole group discussion around it. And you'll see on the first page of the guidance notes there are some questions there to support you in how you might frame a discussion. So, for example, do you feel that you have choices when responding to other people's behaviour? What makes some things better choices than others, and what might you think is bad advice? So all of these questions are things that you could use to navigate your way through a discussion. Again, what we would encourage you to do is to really get to know the resource inside out before you would have that discussion, so that you're ready and able to take any questions that young people might have. But also, I just invite you at this point to think how you might use this resource in your own setting. We've aimed to make it as flexible a resource as possible so it can be used in primary schools, secondary schools, and in colleges. And just really, again, to get your feedback about how you think this resource might work in your own setting. So I guess getting you to think creatively about how you might position this resource within a college environment to make the most out of it. So I'll just give you a couple of minutes for people to note down their ideas, because again, it might give other people on the discussion some good ideas about how they might use this resource. So I can see coming through here people suggesting that it would work well within personal development classes as a way of directing other staff members in terms of helping them explore options with young people. Would definitely work really well. Could be used as part of induction. And yeah, I can see somebody suggesting, Leslie suggesting that it could be used as part of a health and wellbeing week to showcase or highlight aspects of bullying and its impacts. So some really good ideas there. So again, you know, when you get the webinar will be uploaded and available on the CDM website. So again, you can go back and look through these comments to give you some ideas going forward. So the other key thing that I thought that is important to mention when exploring options with young people, it can be very tempting to actually come up with those options and those ideas yourself in a way of actually thinking you're doing the best thing to help that young person. Again, what we found out is that from listening to children and young people is that what they value is having the space to come up with their own options and ultimately decide what they think will work best for them. So we might think it's the best thing, we're doing the best thing by telling them what we think would be the best thing for them to try. But I would just encourage you to give that young person the space around exploring them and then giving them the opportunity to decide for themselves what they think would be the best thing going forward. And it seems a really obvious thing to say, but you'd be surprised how often that young people can report back that actually other people telling them what to do is often not the most helpful of ways of supporting them. And again, if they've come up with their own solution, their own ideas, often there's much more buy-in there to try things out for themselves, and it does help to restore agency if they've generated their own options as well. So I hope that's been helpful to showcase that resource, and I wanted to again just maybe pull the webinar to a close by talking about some ways in which we might be able to support you further going forward. So two of the important ways or key ways that Respectme can support you in your college environment are as follows. We've got a key role to play in terms of raising awareness amongst adults that work with children and young people about bullying. So if you go to the Respectme website, which I should just say has been completely revamped and as of Monday went live. So if you take the time to explore the website, you'll find on the website a whole list of resources that you can use in your own training or awareness sessions within your own college settings. So there's a whole load of videos, our YouTube channels highlighted, and ideas that you can use within personal social development classes that you might want to try out. So loads and loads of resources there. We also have a training calendar which is regularly updated that if as a result of today's webinar you'd like to get more information on certain aspects, then we have a whole one-day's training called Bullying It's Not Acceptable, and anybody can book onto that training. It's completely free of charge, and we have regular days throughout Scotland, Aberdeen, Edinburgh, Glasgow, and you can book on and take the time to explore things in a bit more depth. So all of the training is there. The other key thing that we can do to support you is in terms of policy development, because what we know is that anti-bullying policies that are regularly looked at, refreshed, consulted upon, and brought out of the kind of dusty drawer and become kind of living, breathing documents with practical steps that are bringing those policy documents to life. We know that policy is an important part of creating environments where bullying is difficult to thrive. So we can offer colleges guidance and support if you are in the stages of maybe thinking that your anti-bullying policy could do with a refresh or a fresh pair of eyes. We can be the sounding board or give you some help and support there. We've got a partnership manager called Lorraine Glass who is absolutely fantastic, and she will work with you to give you that any help and guidance that you need. So two key areas then, training and policy going forward, and particularly in the light of the Equality Act 2013, there may well be a need within your colleges to refresh your policies in light of that Act in 2013, to bring everything bang up to date and to name protected characteristics, etc. So we can help you with all of that. So I'll bring this session to an end. I really hope that's been helpful to you, give you a little bit of an insight about the work of Respectme. I'll just throw the session now back, and we will then come on to questions and answers that you might have. So thank you for listening and taking the time to go through that with us.